Well, circling back to India's latest economic numbers, which saw GDP growth slow to 4.1% in the last quarter. While it beats estimates, that is still the slowest pace in a year. India is also cutting its full-year growth estimate to 8.7%. And for more, Rebecca Bundan joins us live from Mumbai. Rebecca, what are the key drivers for the slower growth?
Well, that slower growth of 4.1% is for the January to March quarter, the last quarter of the financial year in India. Now, in that quarter, what we saw, this reflects the impact of the Omicron variant of the coronavirus in particular. Once that came in, we saw India and the different states introducing more restrictions, COVID restrictions coming back into effect. And that hampered the economy as India had been bouncing back. It's been trying to really make that recovery after a couple of years of being affected very badly by the pandemic, particularly in 2020 when it actually fell into a historic recession. So there was that impact. Then in February, towards the end of February, of course, we saw Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So the last week of February and in March as well, which is also reflected in this data, we saw the impact of higher crude oil prices and higher commodity prices in general, really affecting India, particularly pushing up inflation. India, of course, actually depends on imports for most of its oil requirements. So we've really seen that effect, and those are ongoing concerns for India at the moment. So we saw that in the first quarter, and we're also seeing that now as well, the risks of high inflation, food and fuel prices, and generally the impact of the Russia's invasion of Ukraine on the global economy, which is still very much big concerns for India's economy.
Rebecca, does stagflation look likely for India?
Well, economists say that it's not at the stage where they would say that India's economy is actually headed towards stagflation, because although India is seeing this slowing growth, the dampened economic growth at the moment, and this high inflation, which is a very real risk and an ongoing concern as Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues, as oil prices, food prices continue to rise, really hitting India very hard. At the same time, if we look at the economic growth forecasts, for example, from ratings agency Moody's, which last week trimmed its economic growth forecast for India for this year, that was from 9.1% to 8.8%. So still relatively high levels of growth that would mean that India wouldn't be actually categorized as going into stagflation. What economists say, it would be more of a moderation of growth, which is still a big concern. And of course, these inflationary risks as well are really posing a big challenge to India at the moment. That's hitting households and businesses. It impacts consumer demand. India's economy is a consumer-driven economy. So that's a big worry for the country as it tries to bounce back from the impact of the pandemic. Now, there are really other big challenges that the country is facing. But at the same time, one positive for the economy, or one potential positive, is the fact that the monsoon rains have arrived in Kerala a couple of days early on the southern coast, a couple of days earlier than usual. And there are forecasts for potentially a normal monsoon rain season this year as the rains make their way across the country over the coming weeks. Now, that's vital for the agriculture sector, farming, and that could boost crop output. Half the population depends on agriculture for their livelihood, and that in turn could boost consumer spending if that does well. So everybody's watching those risks and seeing how that all pans out. Also, of course, as well, other global risks like the tightening of liquidity are concerns. So there's a lot that we have to watch at the moment to see how things pan out.
All right. Many thanks for that, Rebecca Bundan there in Mumbai.